Greetings! In this video I'll be painting an Iron Raven's Intercessor from their second company. This model is known as Brother Vigneus from the Space Marine Heroes blind boxes. I had one of these left over, so I decided to use it for this video. You can now get these models from the Kill Team starter box. After a simple black primer, I used Leadbelcher to base paint the armour. I thinned the paint a little so it went on smoother, and I applied it pretty much all over. Anywhere that's not meant to be silver can be painted over later, so it's faster to just get a coat down and correct it later. While the thinning helped create a smooth finish, some spots needed a second coat. Next I applied the blue base coat with Macragge blue. I needed to thin this paint a little as well, as it was drying too quickly on my brush. The Iron Ravens paint their pauldrons, knee pads and helmet blue, with markings on top. Like the silver, I applied a second coat to get complete coverage with the thin paint. Now onto Mephiston red for the upper half of the gun casing and the stripe on the helmet to indicate this guy's role as a standard battle brother. It can be fiddly to hand paint stripes, but you can use the protrusion at the top of the helmet as a guide, painting the rough edges, then slowly doing thinner ones outwards towards where you want the edge to be. Seems to work well enough for me. I also base coated the eyes at this stage. Switching to Retributor armour, I painted the Aquila on the auto bolt rifle, the Imperialis on the torso, and the pauldron trims which denote him as a member of the second company. I also painted the exposed cartridges in the magazine, as well as the spent casings on the base with this colour. As the ground wasn't painted yet, I wasn't fussed about making a mess, so I quickly applied the base coat on the casings. For the leather I used Rhinox hide. The belt, pouches and holster received a base coat. Some spots needed two coats to fully cover the primer and silver bits. I also painted the base with Rhinox hide in preparation for later. Wanting to try get a darker gunmetal to stand out against the armour, I switched to Iron Warriors and covered the gun chassis, and also the various power pack details. I wasn't sure about it at the time, I thought it wouldn't stand out enough. By the end of the paint job, however, I was pleasantly surprised. For the parchment I used Steel Legion drab. Again, I needed two coats in certain spots. I also roughly painted the rocks on the base, allowing the imperfect finish to add a bit of texture for a more natural feel. Now finally for the black details. I used Black Legion for this. It covers well and doesn't dry on the brush as quick as the other paints I have. I painted the undersuit, any cabling, and the lower half of the gun casing, including the magazine housing. I switched to Wordbearer's red for the wax, applying a simple base coat. I then highlighted that with Pink Horror, dotting the raised surfaces. I then went back to the leather, doing an edge highlight with Skrag brown. With the paint on the brush drying a bit, I applied some rough scratches. A final edge highlight was sparingly applied with Deathclaw brown. I emphasised scratches and cuts. Next I used Morghast bone to layer up the parchment. I applied this in lines, trying to keep some of the base coat visible to suggest folds in the material. For the text I used a micron pen, and I just did a few little scribbles down the paper. Now for highlighting the red, I applied an edge highlight with Evil Sunz Scarlet, thinned a little so it would go on easily. The top of the helmet received a bit more than just an edge highlight. I layered the top front half of the head as it would receive the most light and to help it stand out. I also highlighted the eyes here too. The paint was a bit runny, but it would be cleaned up by later steps. For the blue I decided to use Altdorf guard blue to layer it up. I tried to do highlights similar to the box art, where the edges of every surface are highlighted, even the ones that don't have physical edge, like the inside of the pauldron trim and next to the helmet stripe. I think it looks alright. It definitely helps define the surfaces, which is the whole point of the box art paint jobs. I applied a final edge highlight with Calgar blue. Back to the red, I used Wild Rider red to finish up the helmet and to further highlight the eye lenses. I finished the eye lenses by applying a small dot of Lugganath orange. It looks a bit weird close up, but I think it looks awesome from a little further away. The black received a simple edge highlight with Eshin Grey. Finally onto the decals. I prepared the surface with a gloss varnish, both pauldrons and the left knee pad. Then, while that was drying, I turned my attention back to the base. I used Baneblade brown to highlight the rocks in a splotchy motion. I also hit the top of the dirt bits that stick out. A light pass with Karak stone was then applied to further highlight the rocks. I then used Reikland Flesh Shade over the gold. This works both as a wash and to stain the gold to give it a more warm look. A dark grey wash was then applied to all the silver metallics over the Leadbelcher and Iron Warriors. Moving back to the transfers, I cut out a Raven Guard armorial, a tactical battle line symbol, and a low Gothic numeral, and then put a few drops of water on them. I then applied microset to the surfaces, to aid in positioning the decal and to help it adhere. I placed the decals and positioned them off camera with a brush and knife. While waiting for the microset to dry, I switched to Auric Armour Gold and applied a thin layer over the gold. This paint is super thin, but it excels in adding a gold metallic feel to spots where the shade dulled the metallicity too much. Now that the microset had dried, I applied Microsol. This helps the decal conform to rounded surfaces, and makes it sink in as close to the surface as possible, which can help it look like it was painted. I used a cotton tip to press down on the surface, both drying it and forcing any wrinkles to flatten. We're finally on to weathering now. Enamel works great as a quick way to wash the model, providing both panel lining and a grimy texture. I brought in some earth effects and applied it over the ground and legs to give it a more dusty vibe. After about half an hour the enamel had dried, so I applied Black Legion to the base and I was finished. And here we have it, an Intercessor of the Iron Raven's second company. I'm pretty happy with this one. I seem to be doing a lot of chapters with metallic armour, but finally I seem to have gotten the gun to look right next to the Leadbelcher based armour. I'm happy with the ground too. I'm not used to painting terrain, but I think this one came out pretty nice. This scheme is an odd one. It looked like a toy before the shading and weathering. I think I might try one of those really weird colour schemes soon. I'm curious to see if I can make them a little bit less striking. Another thing I should mention is that I lost a bit of footage when I was dotting the rivets on the auto bolt rifle. Just a tiny thing, but yeah. Anyway, not much else to say about this one. Leave a comment if you want to see a specific chapter in a future video. Otherwise that's it. I hope you'll stick around for the next one.